The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fox Hill.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. May I add my words of thanks to you for the invitation to attend the conference last week. And although because of some timing issues I had to leave, I understand that there was quite a spirited discussion following the intervention that I made, which actually dealt with this point, which is now a subject to the ruling of the court. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, as you said, there was a ruling by the Supreme Court by Justice Indra Charles. The government issued the following statement in response to a decision by the Supreme Court on a matter involving parliamentary privilege. And I wish to quote from that statement of the government. The judgment, it reads, "The judgment delivered today in the matter of parliamentary privilege and involving the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Education is being carefully studied by the government. The government awaits the formal advice on the effect of the judgment, but preliminarily is of the view that any finding that there was a breach of the constitutional rights of anyone in this matter is a decision which is wrong on the facts and wrong in law. The learned judge's decision will be promptly appealed. At the request of the Attorney General, a stay of the entire decision was granted by the court, so the status quo remains pending the hearing and determination of the appeal. While due respect must be given to the role of the courts to adjudicate fundamental rights, the privilege of parliamentarians to speak freely within Parliament is inviolate, and it is the intention of the government to seek to defend the law which now obtains on the subject and to preserve the freedom of members of Parliament to speak freely in the Houses of Parliament." That's the end of the statement yesterday, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of privilege, and I say that it is my view that this decision, in this case, is a serious blow to the Parliament and its work, and it must not be allowed to stand. The rights for our constituents to have members of this Parliament who can speak freely in this place must be defended. There are wider issues at stake than whether or not the MP for Fox Hill or the MP for Marathon can personally get up and speak freely in the House of Assembly. This decision threatens to set aside a history of free speech in this Parliament that dates back to 1729. And up to now, the law on that issue has been crystal clear. It is therefore incumbent that this matter be prosecuted through to the Privy Council with dispatch. The progenitors of this ruling were crowing in the press this morning about the rule of law and about saving the financial industry. Mr. Speaker, with respect, this has nothing to do with saving financial services in this country. Any threat to the financial services industry was a figment of the imagination of the QC who brought this case. It's a figment of his imagination. The public should be reminded of the facts and the history of this matter. This matter was brought by two representatives of the people of the Bahamas, not the government. Two members of Parliament, qua members of Parliament, brought this matter to the House of Assembly on behalf of the people they represented. And what was alleged, that it was discovered and asserted that some $8 million passed through the accounts of the firm of Calendars & Co. to be used through an organization called Save the Bays, funded by non-nationals with the explicit intent of destabilizing the government of the Bahamas. The preliminary evidence on this matter was presented to the House and asked to be referred, and was referred, to the Committee on Privileges. And we asked the Committee on Privileges to investigate the claim. In doing so, Mr. Speaker, those members of Parliament, including myself being one, followed a time-honored practice in this place. And the work of that parliamentary committee should begin. It's always been done. Any member of Parliament with information in their possession has a duty to bring that case here and to present that case. No one, in their wildest imagination, could have thought that a judge of the Supreme Court would grant an order to restrain MPs from speaking in Parliament to defend this nation. This is simply remarkable. Remarkable. I wonder if people, a permanent injunction against members of Parliament from speaking in Parliament? What? The Bahamian people should be outraged at this ruling, because it would suggest that their parliamentary representatives must now be sitting on pins and needles, seeking to divine what they can and cannot say. Should I say this? Should I say that? Will I get an injunction against this? Am I going to be held in contempt? You're speaking in Parliament now. When the law, Mr. Speaker, up to now has been clear that free speech was possible in Parliament. The Committee on Privileges will need to do its work with regard to what is behind this matter, as alleged, when the matter first came to Parliament. And that is to investigate the claim that $8 million went through Calendars and Co's bank accounts to fund Save the Bay's effort to destabilize the government. That's the issue here. And we have an obligation to get behind it and find out the truth of it. And that's what the QC who brought this matter into the courts will have to answer. It is the larger issue of free speech that has to be defended. The irony, Mr. Speaker, is that these are the same people now who argue that the government needs a Freedom of Information Act. Well, they want freedom of information, openness of information. But as well paid as they are by foreign people to go to court to restrain the freedom of speech of parliamentarians and the right to information of members of Parliament, and in this ruling, they've so far succeeded in it, at least succeeded in law. As for myself, Mr. Speaker, I assert, which I have always asserted, any purported order to restrain me from speaking freely will be ignored. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. Nothing to do with me. And I wish to say that I support the work of the Member of Parliament for Marathon in this regard, and I trust that we will all see this trouble to the end, as I intend to do. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.